Welcome everyone to episode 50 of The Collecting Confidant with your host, GunstarHero, and I'm back this week with something a little different. I thought I'd try a new sub-series where I pay tribute to the games that are no longer available not only physically, but in most cases digitally as well. So this is called DELISTED, and I'm going to start with a game for one of my favorite developers, PlatinumGames. This is Transformers Devastation, which came out originally in 2015, October 6th to be exact, on the PS3, PS4, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox 360, but then was later delisted in December of 2017 from all storefronts, following the expiration of the licensing deal between Hasbro and Activision. So in terms of Transformers Devastation, if you did not purchase this either physically or digitally back in the day, you no longer have access to what I would consider to be one of PlatinumGames' better games. And it's ironic because this actually came out of that very quote-unquote prolific period in Platinum's history where they started arguably releasing too many games, and thankfully this is one of the better games that came out of that crazy little period. But again, if you never played it, and if you do want to play it now and missed out, you are going to have to start ponying up some extra dough to get this physically, especially if you want to get this on the PS4. That seems to be the more expensive version, and we'll get into that later when we go through some of the current eBay listings and pricing history. But back to the game. If you never played Transformers Devastation, if you are a fan of the Transformers universe, especially the old cartoons from the 80s and the comics, this is a pure treat. Now, this doesn't just fall into Generation 1 Transformers. This is actually part of the larger Transformers Generations toy line, but in terms of the lore, this serves as a prequel to the Prime Wars trilogy, which was a series of animated internet shorts which came out between 2016 and 2018. And Transformers Devastation, the video game, serves as a prequel to that trilogy. So that's how it fits into the lore. But then it just gets even better because this game legitimately feels like playing an old episode of the TV series, because they cleverly at Platinum use a cell shading style for the gameplay that when it interweaves with the cutscenes, it really feels legit, especially down to the fact that they are actually able to secure a lot of the surviving voice talent from the original cartoons, including the legendary Peter Cullen reprising his role as Optimus Prime, and of course Frank Welker reprising his roles as Megatron and Soundwave. So in terms of the nostalgic feels, this game gets it right, but then Platinum comes in and gives it its own signature style of fast action, hack and slash gameplay that they're known for, and does it very effectively. I would say not as elegantly as, say, Bayonetta 2 or Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which serve as the inspirations and predecessors to this game. But overall, I'd say once you spend a little bit of time with Transformers Devastation and get used to the combo system and how to chain stuff together, and then also use the very clever transforming mechanics to keep your combo chains going, once you get used to the whole system, the game plays very fluidly and definitely feels right in terms of Platinum's legacy. And what's interesting about this too is that the director of this game, Kenji Saito, was also the director of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance 2 years prior. So you'll see a lot of inspiration there in terms of the combos between light and heavy attacks, and more specifically, the ability to slow down time, which is a PlatinumGames hallmark, where if you evade an enemy's move at a certain time, you can slow down time and do extra combos. But then, like as I said, because this is a Transformers game, you can also incorporate your vehicle as part of one of your attack repertoire to keep your combo chains going, whether it's on the ground or midair. Plus you have shooting mechanics, which fuse it a little bit with Bayonetta 2, so you can see how it can get quite chaotic. And this is why the game is actually short. The game itself, when it came out, was definitely hailed for being true to the universe and presenting great voice acting, great combat systems, cool graphics, but a lot of people felt that the 6-hour playtime roughly for the story was a little short. I would argue that the game feels just right. It never overstays its welcome. It feels kinetic from moment to moment like any good PlatinumGames video game, and it demands to be replayed because you can play as one of 5 different characters. You'll start off with Optimus Prime, but then at times throughout the game, you'll be able to enter the arc and switch to other characters like Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Grimlock, and Wheeljack, who all have their different fighting techniques, special moves, and their own different feel. So it feels good to replay the game as different characters, and I will actually say that I played it the first time as Optimus Prime, enjoyed it quite a bit, but then did my second playthrough as Bumblebee, and I just thought it was way more kinetic, way more fun, and I had a total blast. In addition to the fact that there's a lot to keep you going. For example, in each of the 7 main levels of the story, there's all these different submissions that have all their different rankings when you complete them, anywhere from D class to double S class. So it encourages you to get better at the combos and all the different attacks and figuring out the characters to get the best rating possible. But then there are also multiple difficulty levels to keep you coming back and just getting better. And I just feel that because the game is so explosive, kinetic, so much crazy action happening from moment to moment, and is so well paced and acted, that I wanted to play it again as soon as I finished it. It just feels like you could just binge it in a couple of days and go start again. So from that perspective, if you base the value of your games on length, you may be disappointed, but trust me, it feels just right. So that in a nutshell is the game. In terms of other features, it has a very Diablo-like loot system where you can constantly pick up different types of weapons that have different rarities and different values, so you can either equip these weapons, or when you go into the arc system, you can also synthesize these weapons together to make new variants. In addition, you can also sell them for credits, which you can then use to purchase new move sets. You can also purchase items that can be used in battle, like very important health upgrades. And then there's other stuff too that gets a little chaotic. You have the tech system where you can create these new passive upgrades for your characters. That was one of the features I found to be a little half-baked and kind of tacked on, but overall there's a lot of variety in the loot. There's a lot of ways to expand your repertoire and level your Transformers up to keep you coming back for more and keep your playing experience relatively unique. So I'd say when you take all these factors together, the fact that it's a very competent action-adventure game done by a very renowned developer in their prime, based off of a huge franchise that pays very good respect and attention to the lore and brings back the old voice actors in most respects, you can see why this game is starting to go up in value quite a bit, especially, again, the fact that you can no longer purchase this if you do not have this in your download history on digital platforms, or if you didn't purchase this physically back in the day. So let's take a quick look now at how the game is trending in terms of price and what it's been doing historically. So here we're taking a look at the pricecharting.com comparisons between the 6th gen versions of Transformers Devastation on PS3 and Xbox 360 versus the 7th gen versions on PS4 versus Xbox One. Right here we're looking at 7th gen comparisons. You can take a look at the overall history of the pricing on each of the versions, the gold line representing the PS4 version, whereas the blue line representing Xbox One. You can see overall they tend to chart very similarly until the last couple years, where the PS4 version starts to overtake the Xbox One version. And I'd say that has a lot to do with the fact that there are more PS5s out in the wild, meaning you can play this game backwards compatible. Plus, the PS4 version technically had better performance than the Xbox One with a tighter frame rate, although it was very minimal. You can see the differences for yourself if you go to Digital Foundry and look at the tech comparison videos. But then interestingly, the PS3 versus Xbox 360 versions are fairly similar, aren't too much different in terms of value, but are a lot less. Although I would say in terms of performance, if you can't afford the 7th gen versions, you can still have a good time with the PS3 or Xbox 360 versions, assuming you have the hardware to play them, because other than being at 720p versus the 1080p on the 7th gen versions, they still play very well. I watched the comparison videos. And then finally, I just want to take a quick look at the comparisons between eBay pricing, and you'll basically be able to see here some of the different current values in American dollars for, say, the Xbox One version, PS4 version, which again is the most expensive and rapidly climbing version, but you can still get the last gen versions fairly easily as well. But I would say these prices aren't going down, they're only going to go up, especially now with the conversation around digital versus physical and the overall need for physical preservation. Especially if you go to Steam, you can no longer get the PC version of this anywhere digitally, PS4, PS3, Xbox. This is stuck in time. I doubt it's going to get a remaster. Activision said that it basically still has the source code for this game, but the licensing deal has run out, so maybe a long time before we ever see a remaster or a re-release of this game. So if you do want to get it, you better act quick because these prices aren't going down anytime soon. So even though it's a bit short, still worth having in your library, especially if you're a fan of Transformers and PlatinumGames. So that about wraps up episode 50 of The Collecting Confidant. This has been the first installment of Delisted with Transformers Devastation. Stay tuned because I've got a lot more games in my PS3, PS4 library and so on that have been delisted that are very interesting to talk about. And we want to see how they hold up and if the current pricing of these games makes sense. That's the whole point of this. But thank you again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Later, Game Chasers, and peace.